It is really good to see you.
Hi, everyone. Dr. Camera Tigliano here at SUNY Empire State College, and it's my privilege to bring to you Pamela Lanier. Pamela is General Counsel for the Asbell companies way out west in Missouri. And I asked Pamela to talk with us today because she had, until very recently, a job opening at her company. And she's gone through the process of deciding what the position is, writing the job ad, screening candidates, interviewing candidates, and just yesterday selected the next superstar for her company. So welcome, Pamela.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks, Kim.
And please speak up so everyone can hear you. I wouldn't want them to miss a single thing you have to say. So tell us, please, if you would, about you and the Asbell companies.
Of course, thank you. For myself, I am the general counsel of the Asbell companies, as you said. I've held that position for the last couple of years. As general counsel, I am their attorney. I also am at present their hiring manager. It's a small company in terms of people, not so small in terms of revenue. And so we're very proud of the growth, especially in the last couple of years, that the company has enjoyed. And so we're looking to increase the team with particular individuals, not just anybody can work here. That's what we always say. But we also need a lot of talented folks. I was tasked with working with the division manager to select the next customer service envoy for the division. And the division that we're talking about is Compliance One. Compliance One is an environmental services and consulting division of Jeff Asbell Excavating and Trucking, which is, as it sounds, an excavating and trucking firm. We haul dirt. And in Compliance One, we specialize in dirty dirt. So we make sure what we do is we clean up Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas. So we are cleaning up the heartland of America, and we're proud of that.
Wow, what a great mission to have.
Yes.
And I noticed you used the word customer service envoy, which
Yes.
Frankly, I don't think I've heard that as a job title for maybe ever, or certainly not for a long time. So tell us about that and how you chose that as a title and what that job really is all about.
Well, we were looking for somebody who could work inside of our company, but for some of our select customers. And so that person had to be flexible enough to participate with the customer in the customer's business. And we were looking for, so if you think of the word ambassador, it's close to that, but we really wanted to tie that person even closer to the customer with ourselves. So that really this person will be able to accomplish customer service tasks and be billed for those tasks. This is not an administrative burden on our company. This is actually a service that we will be billing out for. And so because of that, this is not just this is not a person who would be able to sit back. This person needs to go out, seek tasks, and accomplish them. And it has a customer service mission for sure. And some of those service tasks are administrative in nature. We don't really think that those administrative tasks are small by any means, primarily because we have found people who will pay for them. And in addition to that, I don't think our president thinks that any sort of administrative support is small. It's important, and it needs to be done excellently. So that's really where the genesis of that came from.
So Pamela, what was the thought process that you went through as you chose the language for the job ad and delineated the skills and competencies that you were looking for? And then how did you decide where to place the ad?
The first thing that we did was we looked to see what the basic skills were that were necessary to accomplish the job scope. And so those include, and as you can see, the Microsoft Office suite, that person has to be proficient in all of that. That person needs to be an effective communicator, both in terms of written skills and also verbal skills. The person has to have, and this was difficult to articulate, this next piece came across in the interview, not as much in the ad, but this person needs to have what I think you and I have spoken about in the past, a servant leader sort of attitude. In other words, this person needs to be clear that serving people is a privilege and it is not a burden. And so that will come across in a conversation. It's hard to advertise for that. And we were pretty sure that we weren't going to be able to do that. However, we thought we could use language that would be dynamic and living and express the challenge that it is, because some of our clients are rough and tumble folks. They're some of them live inside of railway companies. They're people who might not even be able to articulate what it is that they need, but somebody who's looking out for them could see what they would need and be able to provide it. And so we were hoping that with the ad, we could express that and attract the right kind of applicants. And as I'm sure our conversation will progress, I'll be able to tell you, yes, we believe we found the perfect person for this job.
So it sounds to me like this is really all about, you know how in real estate they say location, location, location?
Yes.
And what I'm hearing you say is it's really about relationship, 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 and how you expect this person to build a strong, powerful, connected relationship with these very special customers of yours, who I suspect have been part of your company for a long time. Am I right about that?
Yes.
And that the relationship is really what's essential.
You are correct. Part of the history of our company includes the untimely death of the founder of the company. And so these relationships that he built with these customers need to be cherished and maintained because he's not here anymore. And so the people that are entrusted with those relationships are very important. Yeah, so I think you're right in suggesting that it's all about relationship.
So tell us, how did you choose where to post the ad? How did you screen the candidates? First of all, how many did you get? What was your screening process? And then we'll get into the interviews.
Okay, sure. So we placed the ad up on the company's website. We also engaged Indeed.com. I think you're probably familiar with that. And then there were a couple of local, when I say local, they're primarily regional, similar sites to that you probably wouldn't have access to. And the reason we chose those was this position would not come with a relocation package. So we really were interested in focusing on local talent. As we collected the resumes, we wanted to see more people than you would normally see. And by that I mean, ordinarily you would sift through the resumes and make sure that each person articulated in the resume that they had the proficiency in the Microsoft Office suite, that they had 2 years of customer service experience, all the things that were listed as requirements in the ad. You could see in the resume if, in fact, that was true. In addition to that, though, we wanted to be sure and include, actually cast a wider net to get a little bit more of a diverse population in terms of their prior experience. So if someone was not, and we did include a few people like this, if somebody did not have a customer service background, there was a reason why this ad called to them. And we didn't want to assume that we knew what that reason was. I'll give you an example. We did have an interview, an applicant who came to us with purely a dog background. And I mean that sincerely. She had spent her entire career working with dogs, training them, bathing them, grooming them, boarding them. And so part of why we invited her to interview was we wondered what called to her from this ad, why she thought she was qualified to do this, to perform this task, because this was people, this wasn't dogs. And so the conversation was very interesting. And what we found out was that her previous experience, while she trained dogs, her primary customer really were the dogs' owners every single time. And so she was able to convince us that that's why she was there. And that made us feel great about that we had selected her for the interview. Because on first blush, it wouldn't appear that she'd be even remotely qualified for the job. But so we went through that process and we cast a wider net and we saw 20 people over 2 days, which was a pretty grueling schedule, but that is fine because that's what the job is. As a hiring manager, seeing just a few people isn't going to guarantee you the correct result. And I'm thinking that we got the correct result in this case.
So you distilled 20 from how many?
What came in was a little bit over 100. So what we're talking about is about 20% of what came in is who we saw.
And how did you screen out the other 80? What were you looking for that they didn't have, or how did you get down to such a small number from the pool?
Sure. So one of the things that we noticed was length of resume. So if someone had just accomplished their bachelor's degree, for example, and had no experience out in the workforce at all, they were eliminated. And I'm not really sure if that was fair, if you would call it fair, but they obviously weren't able to articulate any relevant experience prior to that time. So what we were looking for, and so your question was, how did we select those persons out? We had a pretty hard and fast basic requirements list that appears in the ad. And if those basic requirements didn't show up, except for in the odd case, like the dog lady, we would invite an occasional person. I think there were 3 of those folks. But most everyone else didn't meet the primary or basic qualifications listed in the ad. If that's
Pamela, would you be able to share with us the ad so we can have it available for our students so that they can see what your actual requirements were, the language that you chose? Because I think you chose some pretty unique language, and that will be helpful to them. So I did look on the website and saw the ad wasn't there, so I knew you had filled the position. So we'll hear about that as we go along.
Yes, I will send that on to you.
Thank you. Okay, so they didn't meet the minimum qualifications for some reason or another. What about the quality of the written communication that you found in the cover letters, in the resume? Were you impressed, not impressed? Did some of the 80 that you didn't consider not present themselves well in that case?
Yes, and that's a really good point. So in resumes, if people have misspelled words, if they are, and I would imagine that this isn't true for any position, but in a position that requires excellent written communication skills, that resume needs to be flawless in terms of spelling, in terms of grammar. Sorry about that. And what we're looking for is a set of statements within that resume that communicates a point. There needs to be some point to every piece of experience on that resume, because if it's just a collection of words and it really does nothing to convince me to see that person, I can tell that they're not going to be very effective in their own communication, if that communicates.
Could you tell the applicants who had taken the time to, as we call it in our course, create a personal brand and were at work in conveying that brand to you through the written communication?
I do think so. And up until the time that we've spoken about that, you and I, Kim, I didn't ever consider that. But in looking forward, I will be looking for that specifically. I believe that each person, after you and I have spoken, actually does possess a brand. And they're either promoting it, improving it, honing it, or, they're sort of sitting back and letting it languish, if you will. So I think that that's absolutely accurate.
So let's go in a slightly different direction, and then I want to get to your actual criteria when you were conducting the interviews. But imagine someone sees your ad and wants to apply, but we encourage students to take the time to really analyze ads carefully, because someone, as you said, there's the words, but there's also what's conveyed between the lines about the company, about the mission, about the kind of person that they're looking for. So how would you expect a potential applicant to both review the ad and then prepare, assuming that person has been chosen for an interview? How would you expect them to determine their level of mastery, for example, given you want someone who's not just good at relationships, but great at relationships? You want someone who's not just good at written communication or giving presentations, but someone who's excellent. So what would you anticipate would be going on the applicant side, or at least what would you hope would be going on?
That's a really good question, because
Can we just talk a little louder, please?
Sure. That's a good question, because what we found in the successful applicants, and we can talk more about that as far as getting down to a select few and then finally making the decision. But what we heard and appreciated about the people who were prepared and then ultimately qualified for this is that there was research that they did, both in terms of the company. So obviously the company has a website. And then if they were very determined, what they could do is research further the founding, the basis, the genesis of the company. That was impressive. So I would definitely suggest that an applicant do that. And even though you might say to yourself, well, every company has a website, the person who is the applicant needs to research that website and know what's on it. There were successful applicants who knew, for example, that one of the spills we took care of locally was a spill. So remember, this is an environmental services and consulting firm that I represent. We cleaned up hot sauce. And so there are pictures of this hot sauce spill and the cleanup on the website. And if they went to the website, they would know about that. And so there were very intelligent questions that were posed, was that dangerous? How did it smell? All that kind of interesting, you could tell that the homework had been done. And
Pamela,
so, yeah.
Did you say hot sauce?
Hot sauce, Frank's hot sauce.
Like a barbecue sauce?
Well, hot sauce, yeah.
Hot sauce.
Yeah.
Somehow volumes of it spilled.
Volumes of it spilled, and it was a combination. There was a contaminant that entered into a container and caused an explosion, and so it was a messy spill.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and it was outdoors, and our people cleaned it up. So
outstanding applicants would know that story, or at least have some information.
Part of it. Yeah, and outstanding applicants would have a piece of that story and then intelligent questions about it. Because one of the things that engages the interviewer is a set of questions. And so one of the things that would be important in the preparation for the interview would be that the applicant would look at the website and develop questions. And these would be sincere questions. These would be questions that they would want to know, well, what was that like? The hot sauce thing, So the other thing that I would imagine that goes on with preparation is that one would take a second look at the resume, even the one that they already submitted. And there were 2 times during our process where people handed us updated resumes. Things had changed even in the short time between when they submitted the application and when they were interviewed. So these were up to the minute changes that they wanted us to see for one reason or another. So I would, if I was the applicant, that is something that I would definitely recommend, is to review what you've already submitted and determine if you want to update that, and then bring in the updated version. The other thing I would do is ask yourself, why do you want this position? Because that question is going to be asked. And to have, we heard a number of answers about that. Because I want security, because I want a job, because I'm unemployed, those are all good answers, but they're not going to win the day. Why do you want this job? Of course you want a job, but why do you want this job? And if you're not sure, then we haven't done our job in terms of articulating what the job is. So that's on us if you're not sure. Or there may not be a match. That could be too.
Boy, it sounds like the interviews were fascinating, and that you conducted 20 over 2 days was very ambitious.
Well, and it sounds like that would be tiring, but to tell you the truth, it wasn't. It was engaging. There were 2 of us conducting the interviews. Can I pause this for a minute?
Sure.
Okay, thanks. I will be right back.
Okay.